morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, June 2nd, 2017. I am Dave Biddle, and I'm joined by a special guest. He is Tony Gerdeman from the Ozone.net. You know him. He's been on the show multiple times. You read his stuff over on the Ozone, and he does a great job covering the team. Tony, thank you very much for your time, and great to speak with you this morning.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Dave. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I am ready for some college football. We got the email yesterday about, hey, Big Ten meetings. Hey, here we go. We got to get the hotel and get the credentials for Big Ten Media Day, so it's going to be here before we know it. I want to get your take, Tony, kind of from a observer of the program perspective of what kind of intrigues you the most as you analyze this 2017 Ohio State team. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. What storyline or storylines do you find the most interesting as we head into this season?
I think for me, I'm interested to see if JT Barrett is, the JT Barrett of 2014, or if he's, the JT Barrett we've seen the last 2 years. Is that who he is? Was 2014 sort of the aberration? And I'm expecting, a big year from him. I think a lot of people are, because of the influence of Kevin Wilson and Ryan Day, and that should you would think it would propel him past the 2014 even, but. I think that, and then I wonder, well, is he 2015, 2016? Is that all he is? And even though, he's still a silver football winner in 2016, the numbers weren't what they were in 2014. So I think for me, just wondering which JT Barrett, who is the real JT Barrett, basically.
Let's talk about right tackle a little bit. Are you, we were told throughout spring, hey, Isaiah Prince, he's made the necessary improvements. Are you buying this? Do you think that he's going to be able to be a steady right tackle? I'm not saying he's going to be like an All-American. Do you think he's going to be at least competent over there? Because he had really probably one of the worst seasons I've seen from an Ohio State starting offensive lineman. Just what's your take on the right tackle position, Tony?
He was up and down. I think this year there needs to be more ups than downs, and it's his third year. It's his second year as a starter. I think that's going to help him a lot. It's not easy for a guy in his second year to be thrust into a starting role, especially, at tackle. I know coming into the year, we thought maybe he would be the left tackle, but, obviously Jamarco settled that pretty quickly. I think, he's going to be better, but will he still have, the Michigan game, the Penn State game? Will he still have those lapses where, everybody around knows there's a problem, but nothing changes, and then they just keep expecting him to suddenly become better than he is? I expect him to be okay. I think there are, maybe bigger concerns on the offensive line, but, at right guard, you've got these protected sort of, by Billy Price and Isaiah Prince. So, I expect him to be okay. And if this is Ed Warner, we'd all say, well, he'll figure it out. This being Greg Stadroa in the second year, he sort of needs to, I think, reassure fans that he knows, he'll get the most out of his guys, sort of like Ed did.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about right guard. You brought it up. What do you expect will happen there? Obviously, Demetrius Knox was running with the first team for much of the spring. Now there's talk he could be in the doghouse. Obviously, Matt Burrell took over as the starter for the latter part of spring there at right guard and finished the spring as the starter. What do you expect will happen at right guard?
I'll be interested to see if Matt Burrell can keep that momentum that he finished the spring with. And if he does, he would probably be the leader in my clubhouse. But then you still have Malcolm Pridgeon, who everybody says, he just needs to get that playbook down. And he's been around for a while now. And he's got the size, he's got the feet, he's got, the experience. So if he can just get, the playbook situated where they need him to have it, where he's not guessing, then he's going to be right in the thick of it too. I think if you want, what I'm telling people now is if I had to put my money down, I'd put it on Burrell right now because of how he closed. But that's a long time to keep that momentum, especially, once camp starts all over again, they get some blank slates in there and, it's an opportunity for, like I said, like Pridgeon to show something. And, Demetrius Knox is going to be pretty hungry because, like you said, he started the spring as the number one at right guard. He ends up the season as the number 2 or number 3 at left guard. So he needs to get back in there, and I'm sure he's going to work all off season to get there. But like you said, the doghouse can be an interesting place to fight from.
No question about it. Hey, Gerd, let's turn to the defensive side of the ball. What interests you the most when you look at the Silver Bullets entering 2017?
I'm interested to see what happens at safety. And I know Greg Schiano and everybody has total confidence in Damon Webb. You know, he's a senior. He's a second-year starter. I'm interested to see what happens at the strong safety position because, you know, we both saw Eric Smith and Jordan Fuller get beat, you know, here and there in the spring. And they're talking about maybe rotating 3 guys. And I wonder if there's enough consistency from any of them to be able to play 2 spots, you know, let alone get good at 1. So I think, you know, just the safety position is what concerns me, what interests me because I have total faith that Kerry Combs is going to figure out the cornerback situation. I mean, he loses 2 guys and he's got 2 more, 3 more, 4 more coming in, and he'll get it figured out. But, you know, as we saw, you know, like in 2013 when Christian Bryant went down, you know, Urban Meyer knew that was a devastating blow. So if the safeties aren't there, you know, if they aren't consistent, then, you know, your cornerbacks can be pretty good or great and still not be good enough because the protection is lacking behind them.
What do you make of Chris Worley moving to middle linebacker? You know, we've seen he played really well, I thought, last year at outside linebacker. Urban Meyer mentioned, you know, he thinks he has the mentality to play middle linebacker. But Urban Meyer admitted we'll see how his body holds up. But I thought Urban sounded more optimistic than pessimistic, to say the least. Just what do you expect out of Chris Worley at middle linebacker?
You know, he knows everything about the defense. He's played, I mean, pretty much everything except for, you know, defensive line and corner. So he's well versed in everything that he'll need to do. You know, we talked to Bill Davis, you know, during the spring, and he's like, you know, I think too much is being made of Chris Worley's size because the Ohio State plays so many spread teams that you need a middle linebacker that can run, that can drop, that can do this. You know, you're not facing Wisconsin 7 or 8, 9 times a season, so you don't need a 245-pound guy like Raekwon McMillan. But then Chris Worley, I'll tell you know, he plays bigger than he's been listed at for the last year or two. So he doesn't like being told he's small. He doesn't like being told that he won't have an issue holding up. So I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder that is sort of necessary for the position. You know, I really like the linebacker situation. We still haven't seen, you know, anything really from Dante Booker. We don't know what he can do other than, you know, he's a freak athlete and he can run and he can, you know, jump and he can do this, but we're still waiting to see if he can play linebacker. And if he can, then I think you've got the makings of a very good group of linebackers.
Great stuff, my friend. Thanks very much to Tony Gerdeman of the Ozone. You can read his stuff on the-ozone.net, and he's also a great follow on Twitter. He is at Gerd, that is at Gerd, so make sure you give him a follow if you are not following him already. So thanks very much, Gerd, and thanks to all the listeners out there for tuning into the show. I hope you have a great day and a great weekend. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.